Welcome to Uncovered. I'm Anthony Davis. He's Ron Filipkowski. And together we uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. And we have some very good examples of that today, actually. So I'll get into that a little bit later, Ron, especially when it comes to Ukraine. But I want to start with these pardons that Donald Trump is dishing out like candy. Now, just before we go into the detail, just remind me, what is a pardon supposed to be for? Because as I understand it, it's as if somebody is like wrongfully prosecuted, or new evidence comes out that proves their innocence, or people on death row who plead, their innocence. I mean, as a former prosecutor yourself, surely you must have a take on this.
I've represented people who applied for pardons before as a lawyer. And, what I can tell you is how it works in just about every state is that the governors don't have this kind of power over the pardons like a president does. Unfortunately, our founding fathers, when they drafted the Constitution, simply gave the president unlimited pardon power and really gave no oversight or checks and balances or anything. Just put it in. It made it. And I think they sort of never envisioned somebody as corrupt and dishonest as Trump, but they should have. The way it works is there's pardon boards. And this is also why, like, a lot of people were saying, well, Governor Kemp in Georgia should pardon Trump for the state prosecution. It's like, he can't. They have a pardon board and you have to apply, and thousands of people apply. And there's, generally like 10, 12 people often represent both parties, lawyers, members of the community, not politicians, that sit on this board. They review the applications. They get input from the crime victims, always get to appear in front of the pardon board and give their input, send their letters in. And then they vote on it, and then the governor can veto that decision. And that's generally how it works. So usually what you end up with is people who are like sentenced excessively by like a rogue judge who just went nuts and was in a bad mood that day and hammered somebody for like 40 years for something everyone else gets 15 for. Or somebody who's really lived an exemplary life. Maybe they've done their time, they got out, they've done all this volunteer work, they've turned their whole life around, and that conviction on their record is preventing them from maybe doing something in the future. So it's always been done for those reasons, and people really have to earn these pardons throughout many years. In fact, I can tell you, like in Florida, you can't even apply for a pardon for 7 years. You have to have your sentence over with for 7 years before you can even apply for a pardon. So, sorry, my cat is now in the screen here. so that's there, but there are none of those rules for the federal government. They can do whatever. The president can just do whatever they want.
Right. Meanwhile, these these two reality TV show fraudsters have really taken full advantage of the presidential pardon. Just tell us a little bit of the backstory of these people. Who, I shouldn't be laughing, but I just can't help it. I mean, this is what it's come to. I mean, this is America now, Ron.
I mean, my social media post when I posted the photo of those guys, like, gee, they really don't fit the profile of the type of people that Trump would pardon, right?
Yeah.
Reality TV shows, their picture is in the white people in the dictionary has their picture next to it. like they're the poster child of like rich white people who swindled their way to the top. And so, I mean, what they did is bank fraud and tax evasion. He got sentenced to 12 years. She got sentenced to 7 years in prison. And, they falsified documents to a bank in order. It's sort of similar to what Trump did. They falsified financials to a bank to get 30 million in loans. They bought all these luxury cars, living high on the hog. They used a shell company to hide income to avoid paying taxes. So Trump probably had somewhat of an affinity to them. They have a lot in common. So, but there was absolutely no reason whatsoever to give a pardon, except for the fact that their daughter spent the last few years on the campaign trail doing everything she can. And she's a big social media influencer, reality show person, campaigning for Trump, raising money for Trump. And so here we are with a pardon.
This also, to me, is a bit of a confession, because whenever Trump pardons fraudsters or people who have taken advantage of society, he's almost admitting his own crimes, because he's cut from the same cloth. And so to kind of be like, okay, these people are pardoned. I mean, there's no difference with like Roger Stone and Paul Manafort, you know, that these people, this kind of criminal fraternity who live the high life, and, you know, they either go bankrupt and they have all their debts wiped. I think this particular guy kind of went bankrupt years ago to the tune of $20 million. But it really speaks to who Trump is and the kind of people that he keeps company with.
Yep. And you know, there was 3 of them right in succession, just one worse than the other one. You know, you had the Grizzlies there, and you had this guy Walzak who stole $10 million he ran a nursing home and stole $10 million from his employees, who are doctors and nurses and cafeteria people working at the nursing home. Like, the money that he was taking out of their checks that was supposed to go to the federal government for Social Security, Medicare, and income taxes, he pocketed it. He stole the money. He embezzled the money from nurses and doctors working in a nursing home. $10 million was ordered to repay a lot of that in restitution. I think he owed like $4 million in restitution. Pardoned, which now means he doesn't even have to pay the money back. I mean, this is just, and how did he get his pardon? He got his pardon because his mom gave Trump $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, not the Trump campaign, gave it to Trump.
Didn't she go to Mar-a-Lago or something and kind of hung out and paid to go to one of these dinners? Because this is what he's doing, of course. He's inviting people to pay to get access to him. And
so, you know, the guys were asking me the other day that with Midas, you know, they were like, you know, how can he be so brazen and so blatant about it? And my response is, like, when it comes to this, he just simply doesn't care. The power is absolute. Why do Republicans in Congress, like, that's one potential check on something that he might want to do. Yeah. Like, after the Zelensky meeting in the Oval Office, Republicans in Congress were very upset about that, and they went nuts, and he backed down off beating up on, and remember, they cut off aid to Ukraine, and he reversed that. Right. So when Republicans in Congress put pressure on him over an issue, he does bend, but they don't care about this issue because this doesn't affect them in their reelections. Like, no Republican congressman running for reelection is going to have Trump's pardons be held against him, because all they can say is, like, I have no control over that. Like, Congress has no authority over pardons. So the only thing that they can do is impeach him for abusing the pardon power. But of course, they're not going to do that. So Trump knows this. Trump knows that no Republican in Congress is going to call him out on it. He's not running for re-election, so he doesn't have to answer to the voters. And he's just a blatant criminal. So he literally doesn't care. Everyone in the country could scream and yell about it. He couldn't care less.
Let's take a look at him talking about Todd and Julie Crisley.
That's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great thing because your parents are going to be free and clean, and I hope we can do it by tomorrow. Is that okay? We'll try getting it done tomorrow. So
wonderful.
Give them, I don't know them, but give them my regards and wish them a good life.
Mr. President.
Yes. How are you?
I just want to say thank you for bringing my parents back.
Yeah, well, they were given a pretty harsh treatment based on what I'm hearing. Pretty harsh treatment.
Yes, sir.
Was your brother fighting also for this release, right?
Hey, I go to the University of Alabama, and I saw you speak, and I said that's the greatest presidential speech I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, that's good. I was just there. I gave the commencement. What a great group of people. If you were in the audience, you have to be good. What a good school it was, and I love Alabama. You know, I love Alabama. It's that school is really, that was very impressive when I was there. Yeah, I think I did a good job. I got a lot of good comments on that one, so that's good. I love.
I mean, I've had enough of that only because I think I did a great
sickening.
job. He said I got a lot of good comments. I mean, we are genuinely talking about a man-child here who needs to be coiffured and massaged at every opportunity. But the pardons thing, I mean, this goes back to. I mean, obviously, there was controversy with Joe Biden pardoning his family, but that was for very different reasons. You know, he said they're only just going to come after Hunter and make Hunter's life even more of a misery. So I can kind of understand that. But Trump doesn't even know any of these people. This is the thing.
He doesn't know any. I mean, but you also see in there, besides the money part of it, you see the other reason why he loves these pardons because of these moments where they're crying, they're in tears in their eyes, coming up to. We know that that's what Trump loves, when people come up to him with tears in their eyes, thanking him for saving their life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening when he makes these phone calls. So he loves it. He loves the adoration, the worship. Thank you. You saved me. I mean, look at the third one. This Scott Jenkins, the sheriff in rural Virginia.
Yeah. This
guy was selling law enforcement badges. He sold like something like, I don't know, 20, 25 of these things. And they were being bought by businessmen who were using badges to get out of speeding tickets, to park in handicapped parking spaces, to drive in breakdown lanes, to run red lights. They were buying cop badges from this corrupt small town sheriff. And finally, what happened is the FBI set up a sting because they heard about it. They were getting complaints. And they sent in some agents and they bought badges from him, and it's like, this guy was about ready to serve his time, still hadn't done a day in jail. He was about to turn himself in yesterday, and Trump pardons him. And the U.S. pardon attorney, Ed Martin, says, what was he tweeted out? He said, "Leave no MAGA behind." Like this sheriff was like a MAGA POW behind enemy lines that was saved by Donald Trump.
He posted on Truth Social, didn't he? Let's take a look. Sheriff Scott Jenkins, his wife Patricia, and their family have been dragged through hell by a corrupt and weaponized Biden DOJ. In fact, during his trial, when Sheriff Jenkins tried to offer exculpatory evidence to support himself, the Biden judge refused to allow it, shut him down, and then went on a tirade. And then he goes on about, radical left liberal judges and all that stuff. I mean, what we're dealing with here is pure and utter corruption. This is corruption personified. If you were worried about what a swamp looked like, this is it. There is no drainage in this swamp. If you want to know what a deep state looks like, this is it. All of the things that Trump was projecting are exactly what he is doing, what he is capable of, and where he finds himself to be comfortable. It is from a very dark place where corruption and lies are their currency. That is the language that they speak, and they don't think they're doing wrong. They're not like, oh, we just got away with that. They just do this. That is how he has always lived his life.
I mean, these are following on the heels of course, the January 6th pardons, right? Of all the people who beat cops.
We forgot about those
ones. But look, now that the word is out, and the word is very much out after this week's pardons, that you can buy these, that they are for sale.
Right.
And that Ed Martin is a extremely corrupt guy who is now the U.S. pardon attorney, right? That the word is now out, and this is going to open up the floodgates, because you're going to have every corrupt actor buying Trump crypto, getting memberships at Mar-a-Lago, who want pardons, who have friends that want pardons. And, I thought what was funny was Joe Exotic, the Tiger King.
Yes,
who
the
is,
Tiger King.
The Netflix documentary is serving 18 years in an Oklahoma prison, and or I think Colorado. He's in Colorado. And he tweeted out last night, he's exasperated, right? He's saying, because he's been lobbying Trump for a pardon for years, and Donald Trump Jr. has even lobbied his dad to pardon Joe Exotic. So he posted last night, he's like, I'm innocent. He's like, how can someone who's poor and innocent get a pardon? And he tweeted that to me, at me, tagged me.
Yeah.
And I said, there's no way that a poor person is going to get a pardon from Donald Trump.
Right.
You know?
Well, I was
It's gonna
thinking
cost
earlier
you.
when you were saying that all he loves is people saying, thank you, sir, and tears in their eyes. If he wasn't such a racist, he would find joy in supporting the people of Gaza or the people of Ukraine. Like, that is where his help as a president and a peacemaker would actually give him the most joy and the greatest sense of gratitude from people, because he'd done something for the good of humanity.
But they can't do anything for him.
And
That's the
also,
problem.
he sees them as brown people, or he sees them, through a xenophobic lens, and so
Yeah.
getting thanks from them has no value.
No, nothing. It's what can you do for him, and
Yeah.
that's the issue. They can't do anything for him. It's the same issue with Joe Exotic. What can Joe Exotic do for Trump?
Well,
Nothing.
Could get him a pet, maybe. 'Cause he doesn't, I know
Get
Trump
him a
doesn't do
tiger.
pets, does he?
Yeah, I can get you a tiger from Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
That might,
yeah.
that might actually work. That
Yeah.
I might suggest that to Joe.
I think you should. Oh, yeah, he'll end up kind of putting it up on the wall, wouldn't he? Okay, I want to talk about Ukraine, because I said at the beginning of the show that the way the corporate media manage a story and re-deliver a story is part of the reason why we exist here on the Midas Touch network. And when I saw Donald Trump come out and supposedly criticize Putin, and I saw in all the mainstream press, oh, he's changed, Trump has changed, he's now criticizing Putin. And I read it completely different. I read it as Trump is pretending to criticize Putin. It's almost like that's kind of their agreement. They go back and forth doing this. It prolongs the war. Trump doesn't want the war to end. Putin doesn't want the war to end. And they basically just want Ukraine to lose and for Russia to cede more territory. So with that in mind, let's kind of see Trump talking and doing this kind of faux outrage against his boyfriend, Vladimir Putin.
Can you provide us an update on Russia and Ukraine as well?
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all.
So, Mr. President, what do you want to do about
And
that?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake. All right, any other questions? I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. And something happened to this guy, and I don't like it.
Can I follow up on that?
And yet the mainstream and corporate media report that as he is having genuine negative emotions towards Vladimir Putin.
Yeah,
when
bullshit.
he had to pause for a moment and go, I was surprised. Yes, I was surprised. Ron, as I see it, Trump is helping Putin. Trump is the reason that Putin is having so much success with these drone campaigns.
Yeah.
With intelligence sharing.
You can break down like what he just said. It's just so preposterous. Like, he's shocked, he's surprised.
Yeah.
He's surprised. Putin has never stopped bombing cities. He bombs them every single day. He bombs civilian targets every single day. The only thing he's done is escalate them since Trump has been in office. The number of drone attacks, the number of bombing attacks has more than doubled since Trump took office. So rather than end the war has escalated during the time. But what has gotten Trump so upset lately is because he is now looking like a piece of shit. He's looking terrible. He thought with the Oval Office meeting with Zelensky, I absolutely believe that the plan there with that ambush was to try and blame Zelensky and Ukraine for his inability, his failure to fulfill his campaign promise to end this war in 24 hours, right? He knew he couldn't do it. He had no plan. And so he needed to blame somebody. And rather than blame Putin, he wanted to blame Zelensky. But there was such backlash from the way that meeting was handled from Republicans in Congress, and the public opinion polls showed something like 80% of the American people, which includes a big chunk of Republicans, were not happy with the way that he handled that meeting, him and Vance. And so now what he's doing is he's lashing out at Putin because Donald Trump, is being made to look like a fool by Vladimir Putin. Because, when he says, I'm not going to tell you, they said, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? He says, well, I'm not going to tell you you're the fake news. This is exactly what he did during the campaign, over and over and over again. I'm going to end the war in 24 hours. The next follow-up question was always, how are you going to do that? And his response always was, I'm not going to tell you. I can't tell you. It's a secret. So here we are again with more BS.
And, it's entirely intentional. His desire to prolong this war is entirely intentional. He wants to get the attention of Vladimir Putin. He's put Putin on a pedestal. Putin is controlling him by nature of the lack of contact. Putin doesn't show up to any of these ceasefire negotiations. It is, the whole thing is a disaster of diplomacy, and Trump can spin it however he likes. But if only you had experienced expert negotiators involved in this, rather than Trump just doing his whole kind of presser thing and sending completely inexperienced people to go and negotiate on his behalf. It's all performative. The whole thing is theater. We're just sitting and waiting for Putin to declare victory.
So he claims going in, he has this plan, 24-hour. Okay, what's the plan? Yeah. And then we went through weeks and weeks of, have you called Putin yet? Have you talked to him? And he's hum and haw. He was evasive about that. Maybe I'll get around to it. Yeah. So he went through that. Then Hegseth gives a speech in Germany where he concedes that basically everything Putin is asking for. Okay, we'll agree to all that, giving away all the leverage. Then Marco Rubio freaks out. They had to walk some of Hegseth's comments back, but that tells Putin right away, I've already got these guys in the palm of my hands. Then the next thing he does is he appoints Steve Witkoff, who has zero diplomatic experience, never worked in government, never been an elected official, never served in the military, doesn't know history, doesn't know anything. How did he get this job as special envoy to Russia? He's a real estate guy from New York City. That's how Trump knows him. And by the way, Witkoff's son is a major player in the crypto industry. So we send this fool, this real estate guy over there. He doesn't want to bring any diplomats with him. No one from the State Department. He's had 4 meetings with Putin. Not one meeting had a single diplomat with him. So he met alone with Putin. And he didn't even bring his own interpreter. So he's using a Kremlin interpreter. This is why this is such a disaster. It has nothing to do with anybody else other than Donald Trump.
And then meanwhile, the social media posts continue, this time with him. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. There is a small one. I think it's missing, but let me read it out. It's missing from my list, but I'll read it out. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize, this is what Trump posted, is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with fire, right? He posted that yesterday, 11:44 a.m. on Truth Social. Now, let's just think about this for a second. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize is if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. I mean, really bad. What is he saying here? Is he saying the quiet part out loud? Is he saying that actually he's been protecting Russia in this war in Ukraine, that he's been providing intelligence, as we said earlier? Is he admitting that he's on the wrong side of history?
I mean, I've read every social media post that Donald Trump has made for many years, 100% of them, all of them.
I found it. Here's the.
And I've watched all his rally speeches and a big chunk of his interviews. Right. Yeah. I have this. It's very rare that he's going to shock me with anything. This one really surprised me because yes, he is saying the quiet part out loud here. So there's two things about this. Number one is yes, he's saying like there's a lot I could have done, but I chose not to do it. I held those things. And there is a lot he could do. There's plenty he could do. Yeah. But I held a lot back. Why? Why? It's been 4 months. In other words, there's children and women and children and elderly and everyone else getting killed every single day.
Right.
And he's saying, I have the power to do something to try and stop this, but I've chosen not to, while he's playing golf and doing all these other things. So why would he admit to that? In other words, he could have said, like, look, we've already done everything. We've sanctioned them. We've given Ukraine weapons. There's nothing we can do. I mean, that actually would have like made more sense if he's trying to cover his ass. But he just comes out and admits it because he thinks that this kind of bluster is like going to get Putin nervous or something. But I will note something else, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
His followers are really upset about this, about these recent comments where he is trashing Putin and criticizing Putin in the last few days because Putin's making him look like a fool. This is why he's doing it. But look, they have conditioned these people to love Putin, to love Russia, to hate Zelensky, and to think that Putin is the good guy in this. There's millions of Trump supporters who believe that. And now they're hearing their cult leader say the opposite, that Putin's the bad guy here. Putin needs to stop killing. And I can tell you, I read the reply. There were thousands of replies to that post on Truth Social from his followers, and 95% of them were negative. They were saying, what's happened to our guy? What's happened to Trump? Why is he saying this stuff about Putin? We like Putin. So they don't know what to think anymore.
Trump made a speech at West Point yesterday that just explain, as a Marine yourself, just to kind of explain the point of this speech that the president comes to West Point to make. It's for new graduates, right? It's for people who are joining the military. And traditionally, presidents shake hands. I think Joe Biden last time spent hours shaking over 1,000 hands.
Barack Obama did too. Trump did not shake a single hand. Correct.
And made a speech that many people found quite offensive. Just before I show the clip, just explain the purpose of this event and the importance of the president being present.
I mean, so many of the future leaders of our country, whether it's U.S. presidents or commanding generals of armies or senators, congressmen, graduate from West Point. They come from the service academies. Our country has probably been different than most other countries in the world in that respect, that we have always chosen our business leaders, our political leaders from our military service academies is quite common thing. And so I don't know, something like maybe a dozen U.S. presidents have been military officers, maybe more. A big percentage, and a lot of them went to the service academies and secretaries of state and all that. And so it's a big moment for a president to do this, because he's basically like he's addressing the future leaders of the country who are now just 22, 23 years old. And these are also in many respects the best and the brightest that America. I mean, these people are all very brilliant. And if you haven't visited a service academy, I recommend it, whether it's the Naval, Air Force, whatever, because you can watch them and train, and they're all great athletes. They all have to be excellent in a sport. The physical and mental and academic training that they go through is top notch. So these are literally like some of the finest young people that we have to offer. And this speech is supposed to launch them on their careers. There's supposed to be no politics in this speech whatsoever. Right. Zero politics. Because we want our military and we want them to be apolitical. And these are the people who enforce apolitical. I can tell you, like, when I was in the military and when I used to talk about politics sometimes, like in the barracks or whatever, I would have young officers tell me to stop. They would say, look, this is not the place for that. Yeah. Go off base or whatever. Like, we're not going to talk politics here. And I was in during the 1988 presidential election. And I can tell you, like, my commanding officers, I'm sure, wanted us to vote for George Bush in that election, but they would never say that to us. They would, I mean, so Trump rolling in there with a MAGA hat wearing a MAGA hat right from jump was basically sending the wrong signal. Then gave a highly political speech, a crazed speech, where he's also talking about trophy wives and everything else. Then says, I can't stay behind to shake your hands like presidents normally do because I've got to deal with something very important with Russia and China. He then got on his helicopter and went straight to the golf course.
I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. It's so blatant, isn't it? Because, the people standing there waiting for a handshake, they're not stupid. They can find out that he's gone to the golf course as opposed to going to the Situation Room. It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, there was no situation. There was nothing that he was dealt with that day about. He went straight to the golf course. We showed video of him playing golf a couple hours later.
He lied to them, and they'll know that. Let's take a look at the clip.
Company, and he had nothing to do. He ended up getting a divorce, found a new wife. Could you say a trophy wife? I guess we can say a trophy wife. It didn't work out too well. But that doesn't work out too well, I must tell you. A lot of trophy wives, doesn't work out. But it made him happy for a little while at least. But he found a new wife. He sold his little boat and he got a big yacht. He had one of the biggest yachts anywhere in the world.
What the frick is this guy talking about?
I mean, he was talking about himself, of course, rather than talk about these young graduates embarking upon this adventure of a lifetime as they're leaving school to go serve their country around the world. He's talking about himself. And what he was saying is why he wouldn't retire. He's like, people ask me why I won't just retire. I could live a good life, his usual spiel. I could be like he goes on vacation and enjoys life. He's never done that in his whole life. He's never been on vacation. So, he's like, I could be doing that and I could be having a good time, but instead I'm doing this. And he goes, I had a friend one time, a wealthy guy, and he retired and he got bored and he ended up getting a trophy wife. And then he launched into this story about how this guy ended up going through a nasty divorce and losing a lot of his fortune. And I mean, picture, these are 23-year-old kids that are, he's talking about trophy wives.
Wanting some life advice, wanting to, get some pearls of wisdom from the great president. And meanwhile, but it's also, we should remind ourselves that he is demented as well. He is clearly suffering from dementia, and we've seen this more and more, and it seems that the pressure is on whenever he's on a podium behind a microphone, that the weave, which was his excuse for having dementia, clearly,
speaking of that, we can tie this into what he did with the pardon, because if you remember back when you played that clip of him, he was talking about how he gave a commencement speech at the University of Alabama, right?
That's right.
Right. He was bragging about how they loved him. In that speech at West Point, he said he gave that commencement address at Ohio State, not Alabama. He mixed up the two. He said he gave a commencement at Ohio State when he gave it at University of Alabama. So when you talk about dementia, I mean, how do you mix up Alabama and Ohio State?
And it's hard, isn't it? Because on the weekend show last week, we had Dr. John Gartner on, who was, one of those many psychiatrists who helped diagnose this, idea that he's not just a malignant narcissist, but he also is clearly suffering from some kind of Alzheimer's, as his father had. And, he made the point that, it's hard to differentiate when Trump is being, is on the dementia train versus when he's on the malignant narcissist train. And actually the two kind of intertwine. Yeah. And that, he is rotting from the inside. And with that, he is also a very evil, self-absorbed and insecure person. And so, it is hard to kind of keep track of his mental health. And yet, meanwhile, you've got Jake Tapper writing a book claiming to expose Joe Biden as not being, mentally healthy. The irony is insane. We should probably talk about that now.
And that's what makes the Tapper thing look so much more absurd. Look, if we had come in with like a normal president following Biden, not even the Democrat, even if it was a Republican, let's say it was I don't know who's a normal Republican. Let's say it was Marco Rubio, and then maybe I can understand, okay, CNN and spending some time of their broadcast day on Tapper's book about Biden. Okay, fine. But at the same time, you have someone who's obviously demented and they're spending. See, that's my issue. I don't have an issue with Tapper writing this book. If he wants to write a book about that people in the White House saw Joe Biden slipping and they covered it up because they were so desperate to defeat Trump. And, that's fine. That's his business. And if somebody wants to buy that, fine. My issue is with the fact that an entire cable news network, which desperately needs to be covering the guy who's president right now,
the
doing
rise of
all
fascism.
this crazy shit,
Yeah.
is spending gobs and gobs of their broadcast day in and day out on this book. And it's not just CNN, it's across the board. It's media, it's MSNBC. He was on Morning Joe. It's other networks. And he's providing mountains of fodder to Fox and right-wing networks where Tapper has. See, I would like to say Tapper's become like their darling, but he hasn't. They hate him even more because they see him as a fraud and a con man.
Yeah.
So, he's getting trashed by both sides, but, who cares about him? It's really destroying the reputation of his network because he's the poster boy for that network.
With hindsight, you can say anything about Joe Biden. And, at the end of the day, if people don't know what growing old looks like, then they need to pay a little closer attention to their parents and grandparents. Because, it's like people are so made for TV in America. I mean, where I'm from, like newscasters have terrible teeth. and it's just, we just don't do this kind of image of perfection. It's about the content. It's about what are you actually saying. And we'll bring on experts, even if they look completely insane, because what they say is incredible. And I feel like here in the US, unless you're made for TV, you're not really going to get airtime or coverage. And so we're finding kind of more and more that the rise of fascism and the fall of American democracy, it doesn't really fit the narrative of American television news, which is very shiny and is very, it's all done in a way that is designed to kind of keep you watching. And so a scandal like Joe Biden is the kind of thing that is currency for these for-profit news networks. But democracy falling and fascism rising and an authoritarian dictatorship, it's, as I said last week, it's just inconvenient for these networks.
Yep. Yeah, it's lazy journalism. It really is. It's just filling content, filling the and it's just repetitive. I've watched so many of these Tapper clips and interviews and stuff, and it's just the same junk. We're not learning anything new, any great revelations.
Yeah.
I mean, so what's the point? What is the point exactly? I mean, Joe Biden is not running for office again.
Yeah.
So far as I know, none of the people the staffers that are behind the scenes who are alleged to have been involved in the cover-up are running for office. So, what exactly is the point here in May of 2025 of rehashing all of this?
Well, it's just revenue. It's just making money. That's all he's
many
doing.
of us know it was a mistake for him to pull out of the race so late. He either should have stayed in or gotten out much before that. And the Democratic Party didn't have a primary, and that probably hurt in the election. We know all of this. I mean, this is not any great revelation. So, I mean, I could see if maybe the leading contender for president of the party or the leader of the party right now was part of the cover up, then maybe that would be a story. But that's not the case. These are all staffers.
But also this helps Trump. This helps Trump's narrative that Joe
helps
Biden
him tremendously
was too old and too crazy and all that stuff. And meanwhile, on the far right networks like Fox, they are now using this as collateral. Let's take a look at Lara Trump talking about Jake Tapper calling her and apologizing. I mean, they love this stuff. Here it is.
Lara, when did that apology come? And if you don't mind sharing with us, what did he say?
Yeah, Jake Tapper called me about 2 months ago, actually. And he said, I have this book coming out, And I know everybody's saying that I should apologize to you. I plan, whenever the book comes out, to go on TV and I will say, you were right and I was wrong. And I guess to Jake's credit, he did that. Now, Laura, I think the overarching thing here, though, is that the damage is done, right? We were so close to something so dangerous happening to this country. I mean, look at what actually happened. Look at the millions of illegal immigrants able to pour in. People are questioning now, who was actually in charge of this country. I guess whoever was in charge of the auto pen. We really have to think about what would have happened if Joe Biden would have been elected. These people would have swept his condition under the rug even more. And Jake Tapper saying that this is like a Watergate level type of situation. Now that he played a role in it, it feels a little bit too late to me. I do appreciate that he did keep his word, though, and come out and say that I was right.
Did he actually call you, or was the on-air dramatic apology, was that it?
No, he called me and said that he was going to do this. So then.
Okay, but he didn't actually apologize to you in a subsequent phone call. He said he was going, it's like so convoluted.
Yeah,
he said it's kind of
like that.
odd.
And then, as people were kind of ribbing him more, he said, I told you whenever the book comes out, I guess it was May 20th, I would come out and say it. So,
but
they're just going to milk this eternally, aren't they? And it is added value for Trump's argument, and it also distracts people from looking at Trump's mental health disorders, of which there are many, and the fact that Trump speaks utter gibberish. I mean, Biden had a stutter. Trump talks gibberish, like he doesn't know anything about anything, and yet all the focus on Joe Biden. I'll be honest, I think Jake Tapper should be ashamed of himself.
Yeah, I agree. I think, who has this hurt long term? It's hurt Jake Tapper's reputation. His reputation is shot. I mean, the only people who like and respect Jake Tapper for this book and this book tour is a handful of elite DC media, New York media. That's it. I mean, his pals in the establishment media, he might get a little street cred from them. But look, Republicans, MAGA is using this book to trash Jake Tapper. Democrats, I hear constantly every single day from Democrats who said, I actually really liked Jake Tapper. I mean, there was a lot that didn't, but there were a lot that did. And I respected him, but not anymore. And it's diminished him. It's diminished his network by proxy. And let me tell you what else it's done, because it's about to launch a major investigation and controversy, because the Department of Justice, Donald Trump's Department of Justice, has announced that they are opening up an investigation of all of Biden's executive orders and his pardons, and Jim Jordan has subpoenaed Biden's staffers to a hearing on Capitol Hill, and they're going to make a big spectacle made for TV. And keep in mind, none of this would be happening but for Jake Tapper. And they're going to try and nullify and undo many of the actions that Joe Biden took as president, using the material in Jake Tapper's book as their proof, as their evidence to launch this investigation. Jake Tapper is doing tremendous damage to the United States of America right now with this book.
And I knew he was a wrong un when he was hosting those debates. That was for me. I mean, I don't have a huge history with him, but when I saw him anchoring the debates, I was like,
he was terrible.
He's terrible. I mean, just on the wrong side of
follow up.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. Okay, listen, we have to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about Harvard, of course. That's all kicking off. And Kermit the Frog. We'll do that next here on Uncovered. I'm excited to share with you C15 from Fatty 15, the first emerging essential fatty acid to be discovered in more than 90 years. It's an incredible scientific breakthrough to support our long-term health and wellness. And you guessed it, healthy aging. Fatty 15 founder Dr. Stephanie Venn Watson discovered the benefits of C15 while working with the US Navy to continually improve the health and welfare of aging dolphins. Based on over 100 studies, we now know that C15 strengthens our cells It is a key healthy aging nutrient which helps slow biological aging at the cellular level. In fact, when our cells don't have enough C15, they become fragile and age faster. And when our cells age, our bodies age too. This eventually led to studies finding the first new nutritional deficiency in 75 years, called cellular fragility syndrome, caused by a lack of the C15. As many as 1 in 3 people worldwide may have low C15 levels and cellular fragility syndrome. By replenishing our cells with the crucial C15 nutrient, fatty 15 effectively repairs cells, reverses aging at the cellular level, and restores our long-term health and wellness. Fatty 15 is on a mission to optimize your C15 levels to help support your long-term health and wellness, especially as you age. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15.com/uncovered and using code UNCOVERED at checkout. If you've ever searched for your name or your address in Google, it's shocking to find how many results have your personal information, and it's not by chance. Data brokers and people's search sites collect your personal information, your name, address, phone number, financial information, income, and hundreds of other records. They sell and share it publicly without your consent. But Incogni is here to put an end to that. Incogni hunts down these unethical sites and gets your information removed from the places that expose your private details. You don't have to email anyone, fill out any forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire process for you. Incogni also continuously monitors if your data is put back onto these databases, requesting repeated removals. This way, it keeps them off forever. So you get way less spam calls, spam emails, and much more peace of mind. And best of all, you can cancel at any time, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and use code UNCOVEREDPOD. That's incogni.com/uncoveredpod and use code UNCOVEREDPOD at checkout. Links to our sponsors in the description below. Ron, just before we talk about Harvard, do you see that Trump today said that he was asked about the Qatari jet that has been gifted, and he said, "Oh no, it's no good. It's too long. It's too big." Do you hear him say that?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah,
part.
that broke just before we came on, and so I'm big into the airplanes, and I used to have a pilot's license, and I was thinking, the Dash 8, the 747-8, which is what the Qatari donated him, gifted him, this $400 million plane, is an identical plane to the two 747-8s that he bought cheap from Boeing in 2017 that he is currently having converted by Boeing and the military into the new Air Force One. So the excuse he's giving now for the plane not being suitable that he's been gifted makes no sense, because it's an identical plane to the one that is currently being worked on. It's definitely bigger than the old 747 that he currently has as Air Force One. But again, this is the utter gibberish and the cheek he has to kind of criticize Joe Biden. This goes back to Jake Tapper. It makes me sick. This kind of failure also for the media to kind of point out, but sir, it's the same plane as you've just bought two of.
Because,
I don't know if you have a quick reaction to
because
that.
Because the Air Force One, because ever since he saw that tricked out gold-plated palace in the sky,
turned him right on.
Air Force One looked like a piece of garbage to him.
Yes.
Every time he gets on Air Force One now, it just grates on him that he has that picture of that other jet in his head,
right?
And he's wanting to be in that instead of Air Force One.
So he's got two 747-8s being worked on by the military and Boeing in this hangar, and in this hangar he's now got a Qatari 747 that also needs to be converted into an Air Force One, but that is probably going to take even longer than the two that he bought cheap from the Russian airline that went bust and that was sitting on the tarmac.
Yeah, I just listened to an interview of an Air Force general who's has a hand in doing that, and he says he was on Fox and he was saying, "Hey, this is not gonna be free. This is gonna cost." He said it's gonna cost quite a bit of money
Because
to
the cost of
convert this over,
converting
you know?
civilian aircraft into military aircraft is way more than just buying military aircraft in the first place. So
Yeah.
pay cheap, pay twice. And then how many jets have we lost off the top of the aircraft carrier now that keep falling into the sea? I mean,
Yeah.
throw that into the mix as well. I mean, this administration is really proving their skills. Let's hope they don't start an airline, because I won't be flying on it.
Well, Trump did that once. So
That's right. Trump Airlines. That lasted about
I went
15
back.
minutes.
I remember watching. I don't want to digress too much, but I remember watching the news conference that he gave when his first day where he opened up Trump Airlines, and it lasted, I think, a year before it went out of business. And he was, it was funny watching him because he was probably like 40 or maybe even in his 30s.
Right.
It was like 1987. And how he hyped it, it's just like now, like he was just, this is going to be the best, the greatest.
Yeah.
There's never been anything like our airline. We got the best of everything. And literally he bought like all these old planes and just slapped a fresh coat of paint on them and rolled them out.
He didn't he put like gold taps in the toilet?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And, bankrupt in a year. This
is who Trump is, and this is how he thinks America will be successful. And in fact, this leads into the Harvard story quite well, because, he's cutting his nose off to spite his face by limiting the number of people that can be educated in America. The best and the brightest, that phrase that is often overused, actually involves welcoming the best and the brightest from around the world, no matter what their color or their religion or their culture. Bring them in and let them be educated in the United States. But Trump doesn't get that, obviously. Let's look at this clip of him making this point about Harvard.
Yeah. On Harvard, do you think you'll come for their endowment in any way or go after financial aid?
Well, look, part of the problem with Harvard is that there are about 31%, almost 31% of foreigners coming to Harvard. We give them billions of dollars, which is ridiculous. We do grants, which we're probably not going to be doing much grants anymore to Harvard. But they're 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people. Now, a lot of the foreign students we wouldn't have a problem with. I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much, because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there because you have 31% foreign. Now, no foreign government contributes money to Harvard. We do. So why are they doing so many? Number one. Number two, we want a list of those foreign students, and we'll find out whether or not they're okay. Many will be okay, I assume. And I assume with Harvard, many will be bad. And then the other thing is they're very anti-Semitic. Everybody knows they're anti-Semitic, and that's got to stop immediately.
Saying the quiet stuff out loud again. So basically what he's doing is saying the same stuff that the Nazis said about needing lists. We need a list. We want to know exactly who's in this university, and we'll decide based on the list. And then the anti-Semitic line at the end, that was a giveaway, wasn't it? Because he basically is spewed out that what they really want to do is they want to check out all these people and see if they can deport any of them very publicly, so that then they can be seen to be cracking down on immigration.
Yeah, but I mean, the anti-Semitism, it's all like pretext. That's the Reichstag fire here. I mean, has nothing to do with what they're trying to do. This is all from Stephen Miller. Because I've heard Stephen Miller talk about Harvard many times, and this is what Trump's words are coming directly from Miller, and Miller is the one who is going after Harvard, and Harvard is just the poster child for what they want to do with elite universities nationwide, which is a right-wing takeover. Yeah. So when you go through and you break down like what he just said, there's just I wish I had time to do this with like every single voter in America to just show what a liar and how corrupt he is, but unfortunately I can't. But first of all, who the people are. Every foreign student has to apply and go through an interview and have a background check before they get approved for a student visa by the U.S. State Department.
Right.
And by the way, Trump has ordered that to be halted. There is a freeze right now on all student visa applications, all of them from the whole world, to American universities. So that's the first thing is we know the US government knows who every foreign student is at Harvard. They have the list. They know what countries they came from, and they have a lot of background information on them. So that is a lie that they don't have it. They have the information. What they want is disciplinary records, is any student who's been disciplined for any reason whatsoever. So yes, they can use that as an excuse to deport those students. So the next thing is what he talks about, that we contribute, he's acting like the US government, US taxpayers are paying for foreign students to go there. That's basically what he's arguing. Completely ridiculous. The US government has contracts. Many of them are research contracts to study a variety of scientific things, biology, all of this. They're military contracts, that there are scholars at Harvard that are working on a variety of projects, whether it's medical research or whatever, that the government funds as it does through universities throughout the country.
And the government requests this research to be done.
And it benefits us. Yes.
Right. This is
it's
research
not
that
the
can't
government
be done in the
giving
in the private
Harvard
sector.
money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the foreign students, by the way, are paying much more in tuition than the American students. And
Right.
they are actually helping to subsidize American students. Our universities make tons, millions and billions of dollars off foreign students. In fact, at a time when our president complains bitterly about trade deficits, one of the greatest things that we have as the United States to bring in foreign money into our country is our universities. We have millions of foreign students who pay us billions of dollars to study here.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. But he's
All
complaining about that, right? So, I mean, we could go on and on. There's so many lies and falsities and of what he's saying in there. It's just preposterous.
And yet the $5 million golden visa, in his opinion, is the best way to get yourself into the United States. I suppose that's going to be the alternative. I mean, this goes back to Project 2025 as well. There was a lot of stuff in there about wanting to silence the universities, to shut down Department of Education, to just make people less educated so that, and this is the same with all authoritarian regimes, they don't want any pushback.
You know what gives it away? Is that Stephen Miller a couple days ago tweeted about the voting records of the professors. He says the professors are like 95% Democrats.
Yeah.
So you see what it's all about. And then I just read a story where the Harvard president says we need to now hire more conservative faculty.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's really, that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
They want, and also, by the way, you heard Trump mention that, like, if we get rid of those, there's a lot of Americans who get rejected from Harvard. So if we get rid of those 31% foreign students, then we can, more Americans can go to Harvard. So they can lower their standards to let more Americans in, as if they're even going to do that. So, yeah, I mean, we could spend the whole show just on
I know. We should probably mention what he said yesterday about remedial math. He kept going, they're teaching remedial math now. Remedial math. That's like 2 + 2 is like 4. And again, just no knowledge of what that is about. That is actually, they've brought in this additional module, I think it's called MA5, which is they've added it because of COVID. They saw of all the people that were applying that there was a lapse in people's basic arithmetic. And so by adding this module, it's enabling many more people to do much more advanced stuff. It's actually a very clever mechanism to improve people's higher education by adding this brief module. And he completely missed the point of it. Obviously, it hadn't been explained to him. And then he was just using this word remedial, which he repeated over and over again, as an excuse for, again, pulling any funding for Harvard and other universities, of course, many of whom are suing him. I mean, we shouldn't forget that there are lawsuits in place to try and, reverse all of this nonsense.
Well, that's also a big part of this too. As far as, like, not only is this an ideological quest the Project 25 angle of taking over American universities, not just Harvard. But the fact that Harvard has stood up to them and challenged them and sued them, that is also part of the venom and the anger as to why they're singling out Harvard over other universities.
Trump's press secretary had something to say about this. I'm going to play this little clip. I want you to listen out for the word in the middle that she misspeaks. I think, is it apprenticeships? Anyway, I'll play it. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Here it is.
And the president is more interested in giving that taxpayer money to trade schools, in programs, in state schools, where they are promoting American values, but most importantly, educating the next generation based on skills that we need in our economy and our society. Apprenticeships, electricians, plumbers. We need more of those in our country and less LGBTQ graduate majors from Harvard University. And that's what this administration's position is. And we also are not going to tolerate the illegal, criminal, anti-Semitic behavior that we saw take place at Harvard and many other college campuses across the country.
Yeah, well, aside from the apprenticeships, we really don't want any educated gay people. That would be the worst part of all this. Surely, she's a danger to herself, this person.
They just cut federal funding for trade schools. I mean, what is she talking about? We need to take money away from Harvard and we need to give it to trade schools. Well, you want to abolish the Department of Education that funds trade schools. You're cutting that funding in the Republican budget. So what are we talking about here? And by the way, there's an alternate theory. We've talked about Project 2025 and Harvard suing them. An alternate theory has developed as to why they're going after Harvard. And that is, number one, Caroline Leavitt. There's rumors that, I don't know if this is true, that she applied to Harvard and was rejected. She's from New Hampshire, close by. And also, Fox News has been running stories about Barron Trump. Supposedly applying to Harvard and getting rejected. And that also is a factor in all of this. Now, I don't know whether that's true. They don't make that information public. The school does not. If they reject someone, they don't tell anyone, which is probably a good thing. But of course they're denying that part of the story. But you know what? That wouldn't shock me at all, because even though he might not have had the grades or the SAT scores to get in there, Trump probably thought, because of his name and he's legacy kind of thing, former president, that they would take Barron. So it wouldn't shock me if that is the case, that he did apply and get rejected, and that's gotten Trump upset.
We need to remind people that what we are seeing is a full authoritarian takeover of all aspects of American society and culture, from where possible. And obviously they're losing in court on a number of these things. But the damage that's done in the meantime, the damage that's done to American universities on the world stage, it will actually stop people from wanting to come here. When we look at the statistics on even tourism, the streets of New York are empty. People do not want to come here. They don't want to be searched at the airport. They don't want to have their phones confiscated. They don't want to end up in an El Salvadorian prison. And so this is the collateral damage of an authoritarian regime that, formerly the free world. You can say what you like about Joe Biden. He wasn't a fascist dictator. And that is really the biggest issue for me.
Let me tell you, because you make a good point. That's already happening.
Yeah.
You already have elite students from around the world who were intending to come here and apply to U.S. schools, who are now applying to schools in other countries. They don't want to come here because, let's say they go through the whole process and they're accepted and they pay their tuition and they come here, and then Trump does something crazy and decides to revoke their visa and send them home, even though they didn't do anything. Because, I don't know, maybe they're from China and he gets into something with tariffs with Xi and decides to revoke all the Chinese student visas. So you have all these students right now, elite students from around the world, who were intending to come here this September, who are now like looking at other schools. And I just read an article about this in one of the UK publications. It was either Financial Times or Telegraph, where they quoted an Oxford admissions person who said, look, in the past, if a German student or a Japanese student or whatever got accepted to Oxford and Harvard, the vast majority of the time they would choose Harvard over us. But now they are choosing Cambridge. They're choosing UK schools over American universities for the first time.
And there's plenty of great universities around the world outside of the US.
Sure.
You know, we don't refer to them as Ivy League, but they exist, and they're doing some of the best work, and they're turning out some of the greatest students. And so the point I'm trying to make is that the knock-on effect of the damage that is done by this rhetoric, even if it's challenged in court and Trump loses, the damage is already done. You have to take human factors, the human condition, into account. And people, as you say, they just don't want to risk it. There's no point in risking it when they can go to Barcelona and have a wonderful time of it.
There are countless examples of elite students from around the world, the best and the brightest, who have come to American universities on student visas, graduated, and ended up staying in the United States, getting citizenship, and starting trillion-dollar company, employing thousands of Americans. And that is going to go away.
Yeah. And not to mention the fact, she's talking about trades and wanting to learn trades. Like, people don't want those manual jobs. So I was reading I think an article in the Guardian that basically said that Trump's actions are going to mean there'll be no food on the shelves. There is literally nobody to pick the fruit and vegetables. There is nobody who is going to be here in time for the harvest. And there is no joined up thinking. There is no expertise. There is just xenophobia, racism, and white supremacy, and that will effectively take the food off of the shelves.
Well, because they really haven't hit the businesses hard yet, the construction sites and the agricultural places. They've hit them somewhat, but not really. But there is about to be a renewed effort, because that is the new marching orders. Is they want those deportation numbers to go way up. They've already deported all the inmates in jails and prisons, which, by the way, is insane, because this is another story that's underreported. But to get the numbers up, they're actually taking inmates that are serving prison sentences that are migrants for crimes like 10, 12-year prison sentences that have 8 years left to go on their sentence, and they're deporting them so they can get their numbers up, which is crazy, because you're letting people out of prison and who have committed very serious crimes, and there's victims of those crimes, and you're sending them back to their countries, and a lot of them are going to turn right around and come back.
But they want crime to go up, Ron. They want crime to go up, because many of his colleagues and associates, they run private prisons. They are in this business. This is why, he doesn't want the war to end anytime soon. It's like there is always an ulterior motive. And that's why this whole rhetoric of the Republican Party being the party of law and order is an absolute smokescreen for the fact that they are all profiting off of it. And so, the more criminality, the better as far as they're concerned. It is, you just have to flip everything. Anything that Trump says, you flip it and you'll get your answer. The good news, though, is that Tommy Tuberville has made a special announcement, and this is something that has taken everybody by storm. I'll play the clip and then we'll discuss it. Just listen to the reaction of the people behind him when they get this surprise news.
Boys, Tucker and Troy were educated here. It's home. We've made a lot of friends and a lot of family. So a few years ago, I decided to give back to this great country and fight. President Trump was a guy that really was behind me in doing the Senate race. He's been behind me ever since. And today, I will announce that I will be the future governor of the great state of Alabama.
There we go.
Now,
yeah, he is running for governor, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, this is I've got mixed feelings here because not really mixed. I'm actually like really, really happy. And I'm cheering him on. I hope he wins. I hope he runs, and no, he's running, but I hope he wins because I would definitely, not being a resident of Alabama, I would much rather have him in Alabama than in D.C., where he can. Now, I'm sure Alabama will replace him with somebody pretty bad, but look, Katie Britt is the other senator. I'll take Katie Britt over Tommy Tuberville any day, even though she's not great. She's not as bad as him. So, I'm rooting him on. But the problem he has is that first part of what he just said, which is the reason why he's running. He says, it's home. My children were educated there. It's home. Well, first of all, it's not home. Tommy Tuberville lives in Florida. And Alabama allows you to live in another state while serving as their senator. Their election laws are pretty squirrely. However, their rules for governor are a little different. And so, I mean, Tommy Tuberville, there's like he doesn't hide the fact that he lives in Florida. He actually has like a homestead exemption in Florida. Florida has no state income tax, so that's another reason why he lives there. But Alabama says you have to live there for 7 years. And so what most people, the way they read the provision in the Alabama Constitution is you have to live there for 7 years, the 7 years preceding the election. But that's not how Tommy Tuberville reads it. Tommy Tuberville reads this as long as you have lived in Alabama a total of 7 years in your life, added together, right. And he has from his time as a football coach at Auburn.
And if you have a Southern accent, that helps as well.
That's what he's using as his 7 years. He's saying, like, even though I've lived the last 7 years in Florida, before that, I lived in Alabama, so that counts. And I'm not so sure. So clearly someone in Alabama is going to challenge this, most likely one of his Republican primary opponents. I hope that they're not successful. I hope that they lose their challenge and Tommy gets his wish. But I can definitely foresee, and this would be pretty funny, 6 months down the line, Tommy's in the middle of running for governor and he gets the rug pulled out from under him because he hasn't fulfilled the residency requirements.
I mean, some people like him shouldn't be anywhere near public service. I mean, he did say, I'm gonna serve. I want to serve, and I mean, it's just garbage. This is about power. This is about white supremacy. I mean, he held up these military appointments, didn't he, a year or two ago, and that
over
caused,
Ukraine.
It caused a huge.
No,
problem.
I'm sorry. It was over abortion.
It was over abortion. It caused a huge problem for Joe Biden, and yet here we are again. He's just going to cause more trouble. I just find it so interesting. There's always two types of people that want to serve in this way. There's people that genuinely think they can make a difference, and then there are people that are just in it for themselves. And
the way I say it is like there's some people who want to do something, and there's other people who want to be something.
There you are. Or take something, even.
Yeah.
All right, we don't have long left, but I want to talk about, I hate describing this as Trump's golden dome. It's riddled with connotations. So let's not go there, but I just want to show this post. He said, I told Canada, which very much wants to be part of our fabulous golden dome system, that it will cost $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation, but will cost $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. They are considering the offer. Well, of course, they're not considering the offer. This is Trump's missile defense system that, of course, Elon Musk is involved with and will probably win the tender if indeed this goes ahead. It is a grift. This whole thing is a grift. He's basically seen the Israeli kind of dome defense system. He thinks it's an actual dome in the same way that he thinks stealth fighters are actually invisible. So let's firstly, put that to one side. But this is a grift for people to make a huge amount of money off the American government through contracts. And it might not even happen. But even just in the tender process, there's money to be made.
Yeah. I mean, let me tell you what really happened, what he's really saying there, because what he's really saying has nothing to do with what's on that post. Because I watched this play out in real time, and it was yet another. I mean, I laugh at all this stuff because if you don't laugh, you'd cry.
Yeah,
so,
it's nervous laughter. I get that.
Please don't get offended by the fact that I laugh at this absurdity. It's just the way I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, here's what happened. He wanted this. This was a campaign promise that he never actually fleshed out to figure out how is this going to work. He just, he saw the Iron Dome, Israel. We're going to have a dome too, but it's going to be gold.
Gold, yes.
We're not having iron. We're having gold. Gold
like Austin
dome.
Powers.
Everything's gold, right?
Yeah.
So, this sounds good, like the Reagan Star Wars thing. It sounds good on a campaign trail.
Space
it's a nice
Force.
line in the speech, right?
Yeah.
So then he gets in and he actually needs somebody to write it all out, give me a budget, how much is going to cost, how are we going to do this? And who gets assigned to this job was Pete Hegseth. And, Hegseth was, this was part of the criticism of Hegseth was that he wasn't doing it. He wasn't getting it done. And Trump kept saying where is this? I want this paper on the Golden Dome. I want to make this announcement. And Hegseth's running around the country talking about DEI and woke and doing push-ups and they couldn't get him. And his aides were getting very frustrated because Trump kept wanting the dome paper and they didn't have it. And so finally, I think the generals kind of got together and threw something together and sent it over there. And Trump makes the announcement and he announces $25 billion. And he claims, this is only going to cost $175 billion when every expert says it's going to cost well in excess of 500 billion, right? So, but then what he apparently dawned on him, somebody told him, was you can't do this without Canada.
Right.
Think about Canada. You can't do a missile defense system when your entire northern border is this gigantic country that stretches all the way to the Arctic Circle. You have to station facilities inside Canada, all throughout Canada, for this to work. It does not work without Canada. Well, this is a problem because Donald Trump has just spent the last 4 months trashing Canada and we're in a trade war with Canada. And now, so then somebody has to go to him and say, sir, we need Canada to do this. So he's like, what? Why do we need Canada? And then they explain it to him. And then he puts out this tweet, which is because Mark Carney, when they asked him about it, did you hear about Trump's Golden Dome? Aren't you going to have to cooperate with that? He said, well, yes, they can't do it without us. Well, are you going to agree to it? And he says, well, it's all part of negotiations. We'll see. Right. So then that's when Trump put the tweet out responding to Carney saying, well, clearly you're going to want to do this, right? Because I mean, he's caught with his pants down because now Canada, he can't do his Golden Dome without Canada. So now Canada says, well, let's talk about these tariffs.
Right. And let's talk about never becoming the 51st state. I was actually in Canada briefly last week, and this was the weirdest experience ever. But crossing the border, flying into Vancouver, and I have a lot of experience of coming into the U.S. airports and all the people that work for TSA screaming at you, excuse me, ma'am, get in, and they're very aggressive towards people coming in on the international lane. And going into Canada was very, very interesting. Just firstly, there are waterfalls. I don't know if you've been to the Vancouver airport, but there's waterfalls. There's this kind of whale music playing. And the TSA people are all standing there and they're like, welcome to Canada. Welcome to, really sweet, really gentle, no aggression. It's all automated. You just go up to the machine, type your thing, print your thing out, walk through. They just take it off you. It's very gentle. And even just getting into an Uber and talking to the driver, I was like, wow, literally, I've just literally crossed the border, and suddenly all the stuff that was stressing me out, all of the authoritarian activity, the migrants fear and everybody fearing for this or that, it's all gone away. Even the fear of gun violence and school shootings and all of the stuff that we deal with, healthcare bills and all that stuff, all went away, and the border crossing took like 2 seconds. Whoop, over the didn't fly over any water, and it's so interesting that it can feel like that again in the U.S. if you don't have a leader. I mean, I'm simplifying this, obviously, but I'm just trying to make the point that crossing the border into a country that respects people, their right to be who they want to be, and to live how they want to live, and love who they want to love, it was very moving. I really felt it.
I cross the Canadian border often, and going over there, it's very simple, like you said, very easy, very polite. Coming back is a different story. Coming back to the U.S., it's a long line. It's a lot of questions. It's a different attitude. It's a different vibe. But, what you said is also why I'm spending my summer vacation this August in Quebec, which I'm looking forward to, helping support my friends in Canada by having a nice vacation in Quebec.
Very interesting. And border crossings from north to south are down significantly. Canadians are not traveling to America.
Yeah.
And this is massive. It's a massive issue. I mean, there's not even that much freight coming in. I think freight is down 35-40% as well. And so, we're going to see a lot of changes.
I would like to just lodge 2 minor complaints about Canada. So one is I don't really like the government liquor stores because there's not enough of them. There needs to be more liquor stores, conveniently accessible.
Okay,
that's number one. And the Tim Horton donuts are terrible. They have to get better donut shops.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to say. I know there's going to be a lot of hate in the replies for those comments, but
I think people understand. There was a Tim Hortons in the airport. Actually, I didn't sample them.
Yeah, they're not that good.
I worked in Norway for a lot, and the liquor stores there are closed all weekend. You can't buy liquor on the weekend.
That's outrageous.
In Norway.
That's outrageous.
And the theory
that's not a civilized country.
If you want to drink, that's fine, but you got to plan for it.
Yeah.
Because you can't roll into a liquor store drunk to buy more alcohol because that causes antisocial behavior. See, they think about these things.
Yeah.
That is a truly free society. Sometimes
I like everything else about Canada, though.
We have to make sacrifices. Right, listen, we have to finish, but I want to talk about Kermit the Frog. I don't really know much about this story, but it connects to Harvard, doesn't it? And I'm a big Muppets fan. In fact, I actually got a reply.
It's the University of Maryland.
Oh, yeah. Maryland, that's right. I actually did get a reply years ago. I remember tweeting when the new guy got the job to be Kermit the Frog. I remember messaging him and getting a reply and feeling very starstruck about it. So tell us what's going on with the universities before I show the clip anyway.
The MAGA people and Fox News are always looking for pop culture, hot button issues to play up. We saw this with the M&Ms and, Bud Light. And, we could go on and on about the things, Snow White, being played by a black person. We could go on and on about what they're outraged about on any given day. And, the latest one was just so absurd. It was, they had the Kermit the Frog puppet with the new person who operates it, who I believe is a woman, give the commencement speech at the University of Maryland. And of course, Fox went crazy, saying, this is disrespectful. These graduates, they didn't get a proper commencement speech. They got it from a famous person. They got it from a puppet. Well, leaving out the fact for their viewers that Jim Henson, who created Kermit the Frog, which is an iconic character all over the world, created it when he was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Maryland. Yeah. His wife, where he met at the University of Maryland, they both graduated there. They both died premature deaths. And so this was to honor, one of their most famous graduates is what they were doing by having the Kermit, and the students loved it. But of course, Fox, with Riley Gaines, who's kind of desperately searching for relevance after, she constantly is complaining about the trans in sports because she famously tied for 5th place with a trans athlete in the NCAAs. And she's made a whole career off that, was on Fox now complaining about Kermit the Frog. But it just goes to show you the absolute abject absurdity of these people.
All right. Well, let's show the clip. Here it is.
Not bad, Riley. What do you think?
Imagine being a 22-year-old student who is graduating with your degree in aerospace engineering, and a frog from the Muppets is on stage telling you to stay connected with your people. I mean, you can't even make this up. Instead of honoring entrepreneurs or veterans or innovators, they picked Kermit the Frog. We have students who are drowning in debt, who are struggling to find jobs, and universities are handing the mic to puppets. Not puppets like many Democratic elected leaders, like a real puppet. It's all theater, literally. So I see this as the same institutions who have been pushing political agendas and cancel culture now want to use a puppet to inspire students. It's unserious, it's out of touch, and frankly, it's insulting.
There we are. You got to respect the frog. It's very, very important. I mean, look, Jim Henson and all of it, from Sesame Street through the Muppet Show, has not just educated a millions and millions of children. And it's not just huge in the US. It's huge around the world. It's syndicated around the world. And the Muppet Show was actually made in London, weirdly, back in the day. And I used to work with the guy who directed the Muppet Show, and amazing guy, Peter Harris, and he used to wear this gold chain around his neck on the TV show that I worked on with him, with a Kermit the Frog on it that Jim Henson gave him. And that was his kind of, he was so completely, just as an example, he was so completely taken by that world and the goodness of the people that worked both in the Muppet Show, the Children's Television Workshop. And of course, this all connects with PBS and Trump wanting to shut down PBS.
That's right.
Anything that is good, anything that has goodness, they want gone.
So, I mean, when you talk about like the family values, I mean,
yeah.
Look, there are tens of millions of kids from every generation who grew up with parents who never read to them, who never talked about values with them, or equality, or so many life lessons. Just, it would be great if every parent sat down with young children and do that. But especially in America, we use the TV set to teach values to kids. And honestly, like some of the most powerful life lessons I learned growing up as a kid in the 1970s came from PBS.
Yep.
So it literally like has a huge impact on children's lives who have lousy parents, or have absentee parents, or have parents who just don't have time to teach these things or don't know how to do it. They can at least park them in front of a TV set and they can learn some of these things from Kermit the Frog. And Fox is saying that that's a bad thing.
Yeah. It's not really complicated. I mean, Sesame Street introduced an autistic puppet a few years ago.
Sure. Yeah.
And there was a whole controversy about that too. And it's like, this is teaching children how to communicate with people who are different.
Look, I mean,
that's the whole metaphor of the puppet.
Some of the most impactful like life lessons I learned as a kid in the 70s about race and racial equality came from Sesame Street.
Right.
And it has a huge impact on kids, and it's a positive impact.
Yeah.
But they want to get rid of that because, they want you to learn from Fox News and the internet.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't seem like there's a connection between Sesame Street and authoritarianism, but there is. This is what they want. This is the playbook of the authoritarian, is to take away anything that connects with humanity and binds us together. They want to divide us, and they want to segregate us, and they want to deport many people who don't fit that kind of perfect white mold. And it goes back, I don't know if you heard that quote the other week from Trump when he was talking about going onto this plane, Air Force One, and seeing this new pilot who was like perfect. He said he was perfect. He looked like a film star. Like he made Tom Cruise. He was better than Tom Cruise. He had perfect pearly white teeth and he had perfect hair. And I just thought, he's a perfect specimen. And I was like, wow, the white supremacy couldn't be any more overt.
Can you imagine if the Air Force assigned a black pilot for Air Force One?
Right.
What would Trump's reaction be?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? He's standing out on the tarmac.
He'd be like,
"Hey, I'm the new pilot. My name is Colonel."
I would just love them to do
Trump he probably wouldn't get on the plane.
Well, Charlie Kirk would have something to say about that, and so would Caroline Levitt. She wouldn't even stand next to a black man in uniform yesterday. So
she shifted him out of the way.
Shifted him out of the way. Don't think we're not noticing. We notice everything. All right, listen, we have to finish, but thank you, Ron Filipkowski. I'm Anthony Davis. The podcast for this show, the audio podcast, drops later tonight. If you'd like to listen as you travel and rewind, watch it again, share it, comment down below, check out our sponsors down there as well, and we'll come back next Wednesday with another Uncovered. Thank you, Ron.
See you next week.